So the whole Cold War is defined by two superpowers escalating their nuclear arsenals in an effort to stop each other from engaging in nuclear warfare. But does that really work? Hey, Cypher here, and today I'm doing a collaboration with Plainly Difficult. This episode is specifically looking at nuclear mishaps, as in incidents and accidents revolving around the most powerful weapon in human history. I'm going to be doing the broad strokes, whereas Plainly Difficult will be looking at a very specific incident. Today, we get into how nuclear deterrence itself might cause the thing in which it's supposed to deter.
Everyone in grade school is taught about mutually assured destruction, or MAD. The basic idea is that if you hit me, then I'll hit you back. Except with nuclear bombs. If the cycle of violence begins, then everyone dies. Boom! There goes our world. Here comes Mad Max. So no one wants to start a fight, because everyone will die as a result.
Naturally, that means taking risks. But our intention is always to minimize those risks. Our concept of limited war is based on an equal rationality on the part of the Russians. It also presupposes there will be no accidents on either side.
Many people believe that this is a tried and true policy that has managed to keep the world from destruction, but it isn't that cut and dry. Some may realize how close we've come to nuclear war during things like the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The United States answer to Soviet blackmail in Cuba was a quarantine of all offensive weapons being shipped from Russia to that island fortress.
But there is so much more to it than that. We have been, and still regularly are, at the brink of annihilation. The ideology behind mutually assured destruction has regularly almost caused the very thing it is meant to prevent.
But if he fires one, I'll fire one.
Fire one.
The strategy behind the idea is a thing called nuclear deterrence. A nuclear power is supposed to build up enough nukes to guarantee a counterattack if they're nuked by another nation. That means keeping intercontinental ballistic missiles fueled and ready, bombers in the air with bombs ready to be dropped, and submarines with their own missiles. This is called the nuclear triad, as in ICBMs, subs, and bombs. Once all of that is set up though, you have enough deterrence to stop anyone from attacking you. The US and the Soviet Union are the best known of these nuclear powers, and are still the most well set up for deterrence. But there are several others including the UK, France, India, Pakistan, China, North Korea, and probably Israel. Some nations have even given up their arms, like South Africa and Ukraine. Obviously, deterrence isn't completely necessary for all nations if they can relinquish their arms. But then again, they are protected by other nuclear powers. This is crazy enough for most people. Essentially, the whole world is staring down the barrel of each other's loaded guns in a gigantic standoff that has lasted since the mid-1950s. Just think how much strategizing and maneuvering of nuclear arsenals it must take to keep up this whole deterrence dance. And therein lies the issue. Since everyone has to maintain their arsenals, there's a constant possibility of failure. Some would say, yeah, but that'll never happen. But that's the point of this video, because it already has, not once or a few times, but nearly constantly. The policy of nuclear deterrence is run by a bunch of bumbling buffoons.
Trust me, Sergeant.
Oh, I wish you hadn't said that.
You know that song 99 Luftballons? The funny little ditty about 99 red balloons? Well, it's about nuclear destruction, and is actually kind of based on a true story. Let me refresh you on the song. 99 red balloons get released, and they go over the Berlin Wall. The Soviets see the balloons on their radar, and arm up for nuclear Armageddon. Nukes fly, and the whole world is destroyed over 99 red balloons. Obviously, the world did not blow up or anything. That is left up to the imagination. But the song is based on what Nina saw at a Rolling Stones concert near the Berlin Wall. and the Soviets did in fact freak out about some balloons. Now just imagine, if some errant inflatables could almost cause World War III, then what do you think could happen if just one of all those nukes floating around, which are meant specifically to stop nuclear war from happening, accidentally blew up? Well, we don't have to imagine it. Not only have we accidentally blown up a few nukes, we've accidentally bombed a few places. No joke. Just within US records, which are a lot more open on these matters, we can see that this has happened numerous times. The military even has terminology for these types of incidents, mostly called broken arrows. But there's other levels that the military will classify. Seriously, nuclear mishaps are so commonplace that the US had to set up entire task forces to deal with them. When you have that much armament being maintained and maneuvered around the world, what do you expect to happen? Planes and pilots screw up a lot more than you would think, especially in the military. There's a bunch of times where these dudes just smacked into each other mid-air while carrying nuclear weapons. You have the entire sky, guys. Use it. We've accidentally dropped bombs on people's farmsteads and throughout the oceans. Heck, there are at least 2 accidental bombs left near population centers in North America still just sitting underwater, one in Savannah and another near Vancouver. There's one that the US dropped on some farm and couldn't fish out of the mud, so they bought up the land and just fenced it off. Seriously, I'm not joking. It's that bad. There are nuclear bombs just sitting waiting to blow up people, with no one to stop them if they fail. The scariest instances of this is all the times they'd accidentally drop the bomb and they'd blow up. The explosives used to start the nuclear reaction would sometimes blow up, but without the nuclear part going off. Seriously, there's something like 20 instances of non-nuclear detonations. What the hell, guys? Oh, and if you think we have fail-safes for these kinds of things, the nuclear core could never go off accidentally. Well, there is proof to the opposite. In one 1961 case, 3 out of the 4 arming devices came online of their own accord after the bomb had to be dropped because of a hardware malfunction. It was literally one step away from blowing up someplace in North Carolina. But here we're just talking about bombs, right? You would think ICBMs are safe, right? But a couple have been blown up inside their silos. One blew up because a dude accidentally dropped a wrench on it. Bonk! The most powerful weapon in history can be stopped by a misplaced wrench. Just imagine that. Okay, that's 2 of the parts of the nuclear triad. What about submarines? They're safe, right? Well, there have been several nuclear submarines down because of disasters, some of which are still just sitting there at the bottom of the ocean. Now you might say, yeah, but that's all Cold War stuff. But one of those submarines went down in the year 2000.
They are now entombed as the Navy races to attempt a rescue. This is just the latest in a long line of troubles to hit the aging Russian Navy.
And it gets worse. These are just minor incidents that we're talking about. There have been a number of specific instances beyond the Cuban Missile Crisis that have nearly caused World War III. Some of them are simple mistakes, like in 1979 when someone accidentally ran a simulation on a NORAD computer.
Global thermonuclear war.
And everybody freaked the heck out thinking it was a real missile strike. No one reacted because they simply refused to. The Soviets had a similar incident caused by a malfunction in their early warning system. A dude named Stanislav Petrov, who was supposed to relay the information, just chose not to. It's probably the only case of a single person actually saving the world. Of course, these are often more than simple incidents. Sometimes they relate to war, like the Korean War, the Yom Kippur War, the Suez Crisis, and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. People are brought to the brink simply because of conventional warfare. It doesn't even necessarily have to be actual war. Sometimes it's an exercise.
Hello everyone, I'm Plainly Difficult, a channel devoted to random historical events. This week's video we're looking at Able Archer, the near-nuclear holocaust of 1983.
Be sure to go check out Plainly Difficult. It's a fascinating channel, and he covers these kinds of little-known incidents Anyways, that all seems like a bunch of Cold War stuff, right? Nope. Back in 1995, 4 years after the end of the USSR, Norway launched a scientific rocket meant to study the aurora borealis. Because its flight went over several known nuclear missile silos and resembled a submarine-launched missile, the Russians' instrumentation relayed that it was an inbound nuclear strike. Boris Yeltsin had his key in the nuclear football ready to retaliate. All he had to do was turn the key and World War III would have begun. You just can't make this stuff up. It is not as though our nuclear arsenals have been completely decommissioned. The world is still prepared to fight a nuclear war at all times. This last election, people were quizzing the president on the nuclear triangle, which he failed miserably, of course.
Decision. What's your priority among our nuclear triad?
Well, first of all, I think we need somebody absolutely that we can trust, who's totally responsible.
What? And nuclear mishaps continue to happen. It was, and probably still is, a lot worse in Russia, let alone the other nuclear powers. You see, the nuclear deterrence policy is what supports the idea of mutually assured destruction. If you are constantly ready with your nuclear arsenal, then you cannot be destroyed without retaliation. So everyone has to keep their arsenals at the ready. In the process of keeping them ready, though, we've come very close to destroying the world anyways. Mutually assured destruction is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So tell me in the comments if you know of some funny yet horrifying event that nearly caused nuclear warfare. By the way, be sure to check out Plainly Difficult.